Hello guys and welcome to a new Wargame video today by me Vulcan. Today I'm playing a 3 versus 3 on Ostersund, and this is the follow-up to the previous video where I played another 3v3 which was basically like my first of the day and the first I played in a little while. Now this particular game is using exactly the same deck but obviously a different map. So we've got the same players on my team. I've got Rangru, Val and obviously myself. Then against us we have Zibrek, Radio Rage and Redford. Now they put up a good fight, but today we're going to be going through the powerful British armoured deck. So it consists mainly of my challengers. They are what the entire deck revolves around. So we've got my Challenger Mark 1s, you've got the Challenger 1 Mark 2s, and basically they provide the front line. Then following up to that, we've got the Tracked Rapier and Tracked Rapier FSA, the FSA being for jets and the Tracked Rapier, the normal Tracked Rapier, being for helicopters, because they correspond in range to each of those targets. So that's how the deck works. Anyway, let's talk over the map. So first of all, first glance, I would really like to take the left of my deck. Unfortunately, it was already called by Val at this point, and he decided that it would be his job to head down this side. And the reason I would like to take this side with my particular deck would be because my tanks would benefit greatly from this height advantage. You can see there's actually a hill here. There's actually another one further down as well. And if you can push up to India early on, you can really take advantage of that position, especially when you're playing on this side of the map. Now, meanwhile, because the left was taken, I decided to take the right instead. Still reasonably open, except for a bit more tree cover to be aware of and no hill advantage. So I had to be very aware of HDGMs, and they really did catch me out quite a bit during this particular battle. So let's have a look at my starting forces. I'm starting with obviously my FV-105 Sultan, which is going to be my CV for Bravo. We've got a Gazelle AH-1 for Recon. We've got two FV-103 Spartans with HGM Milan teams and an FV-103 Spartan with a SAS team in them. SAS is something that I added recently to this deck, and I don't think I made much use of them in the last video, but they are very powerful, and the only unit in the game I think that come with AA and AT. Then we've got two FV-102 Strikers, two Alvis Stalwarts, a Pinsgauer with green jackets in them, and another one. Then we've got a Tracked Rapier for helicopter anti-air. Then we've got a Challenger 1 Mark II following up the back. On the left, Val's going to be starting with two Chieftain Mark 10s, a Rover Pinky, a Rover CP, a Tracked Rapier and a Tracked Rapier FSA, so another British deck for Val. He's also brought in two Lynx AH7 20mm. I think he brought them in with Fusiliers, but I'm not entirely sure. And then Rang with a third British deck with Chieftain Mark 2s, a Ferret Mark II, Saracens and Tracked Rapiers. So I'm not sure if this Ferret is actually British. Oh, it is, apparently. So yeah, another British deck there. 3 British decks. And we are going to collaborate over to the right after we have taken all of the sectors that we are originally aiming for, which is Bravo, Echo, Hotel and India. So I don't think that Val really played it properly on the left, because he didn't send enough forces into India early on. But then it kind of makes sense with the air cover coming in from Redford and these other KAs coming in to attack his Lynx AH7 20mm. So unfortunately both his Lynx AH7 20mm get shot down by these KA-29 TBs. And the KA-29 TBs actually managed to drop off their troops, whereas Val does not. So he loses India early on. Now meanwhile on the right I've got my Challenger 1 Mark II engaging on some targets on the right. I've got an Mi-8T shooting at me from over on the left into the tree line where my green jacket are providing recon. Then my Challenger is still engaged with T-64Bs and T-72As. I've also got an HGM Milan team sitting up on this hill waiting to snipe some of these T-72s. I've also got a couple of strikers here. Unfortunately, I didn't notice that they weren't firing this early on. So I was trying to get them into positions which they could see these tanks and start firing. So I managed to get one striker into position to attack these T-72As, but before they actually get anywhere near attacking them, the T-72As managed to reverse into the forest and get out of line of sight. These Challenger 1s are very, very powerful. Rangru preferring the Challenger 1 Mark I and me preferring the Mark II. The Mark II has 12 accuracy with 19 AP power, a very powerful gun, and has its good stabilizer. The Challenger 1 Mark I only has a medium stabilizer and 10 accuracy and 17 AP power. Unfortunately for me, MiG-27M does come in, snipes my particular Challenger 1 Mark II. I then get engaged by some Razvedka over to the left, which have been dropped off by this Mi-8T, and they engage my HGM Milan team. Now I'm trying to get my FV432s with Fusiliers over here as soon as possible to engage these and kill them. I thought that basically one volley from the machine guns of these APCs would take them out. I made that mistake and unfortunately lost an APC and an entire infantry squad just to those Razvedka. But I managed to survive with 3 Fusilier squads, and finally I used this track rapier to shoot down the Mi-8T by moving him to the right of this tree line. Then with these Fusiliers on the left I start pushing up to find out if there's any more infantry that's going to decide to flank me. Because even though I saw that there was an Mi-8T there that had presumably dropped off the Razvedka, I wasn't entirely sure that that was the only infantry presence left in the area. Now over on the left, Val's managed to sneak his Rover CP into India at last, and is now trying to attack Redford's UAZ 469. Unfortunately for him, his Chieftain Mark Vs do a lousy job of killing that, and it does seem to get away. So now my SAS that have been dropped off onto the right here by the Spartan are engaging an Mi-24V. Now the only reason this Mi-24V actually retreated was because he saw AA, not because he knew what was actually there. Because if he did know what was there, he would know that these SES don't really put up much of a fight against an Mi-24V if they get discovered. They only have the blowpipe anti-air missiles, which have an activate and HE power of 5. But against an Mi-24V, they don't do much damage at all. And you can see that when it hit it only did 2 bars of damage. So now I'm bringing in some reinforcements. After losing my Challenger 1 Mark II, that kind of stopped my original push. So I've brought in another 2 of them. Now these things cost 145 points each, so they're very expensive tanks, but they are very powerful and, like I said, the backbone of my deck. Then I've also got 4 FV432s coming in with Fusiliers to drop off onto the right here to engage the infantry I saw earlier being dropped by the BTRs, which are coming to engage my SAS. Now Rangru has a similar idea and drops off 4 Fusiliers in FV603 Saracens. I don't drop my Fusiliers off preemptively and therefore lose a squad to the fire of a T-64B. But with my tanks now in range, they will start engaging those heavy armor targets very soon. My Challenger 1 Mark II here does a good job of sniping one of the T-64Bs, and I'm continuing to fire at the one on the right with this Challenger 1 Mark II. Now meanwhile, I'm engaging with some APCs on the left, FV432s. The help of Rangru's Challenger 1 Mark I managed to secure that side and push into the tree line with these APCs. Now moving up my Fusiliers on the right past Rangru's, but now being engaged by HGMs quite heavily. Now this is the problem that I was talking about. If they have infantry HGMs, it's going to be incredibly hard for me to spot them on this side because of the tree lines. And that's something you have to be very careful about when engaging with tanks towards tree lines. Always very easy to hide HGMs within them. Now on this side, I'm trying to get my Challenger 1 Mark II to hide in this forest, a lot like Rangry was trying to do with Chieftain Mark X. Unfortunately for me, just as my Challenger 1 gets out of its stunned position, it gets routed instead. Two HGMs from this Mi-24V managed to finish that off. So I'm left with only one Challenger 1 Mark II, but I do manage to bring up my tracked rapier to take care of a couple of these helicopters. So I've shot down one of these Mi-24Vs, and Rangru's lovely Javelin squad on the right here manages to take out the second as it's hovering very low to the ground. Now, a little bit of a mistake on my part, moved this tracked rapier FSA way too far forwards, and he does unfortunately get sniped by a Conquer's squad sitting in this tree line right here. I should have moved that into the trees on the right much sooner and lose it because I didn't. But now, because I lost this Challenger 1 Mark II, I bring in another to replace it. Another HGM comes in and manages to snipe my tracked rapier almost from max range, which was insane. But just to get rid of those squads, Rangru brings in a Harrier GR1 and does bomb this site along with this Afghansky. So now I'm only left with one tracked rapier, so I need to bring in another to reinforce. I've got my two Challenger 1 Mark Is heading up against these Conquer squads. In the front armour, those Conquer squads won't do much damage. I've also got 4 units of Fusiliers focusing on the left, pushing into this tree line. And I'm pretty confident at this point that there isn't much resistance left. Because after bombing here and basically killing those Conquers, I knew that there wouldn't be much resistance in the area, especially knowing my Fusiliers had managed to get into this tree line. Now it's just a matter of finding and killing the rest of their units. So there's a T-64B over on the right, no match for my Challenger 1 Mark II, and I managed to kill that pretty swiftly. So their command vehicle does manage to get away, their BDRM-2. But Rangru's having a bit of trouble at Echo. Now, because Rangru's been so heavily helping me on the right side, he's left Echo relatively undefended, and when he managed to get jumped upon by T-80s, kind of was left in a bit of a predicament. So now I decide to bring in my Harrier GR5s. Now these come with 4 500 kilogram bombs and 2 infrared anti-air missiles. They also have a 30mm cannon. The predecessor to this Mark V actually comes with a twin 30mm, which can be useful for focusing ground targets without bombs. But I do like the way that the Harriers work with their 4 500 kilogram bombs, which is why I prefer the Harrier GR5. Also, they can come in handy for shooting down enemy aircraft if they are without anti-air themselves. So I managed to get both those Harrier GR5s out of there, even though there is a Tunguska sitting right there. That does get bombed by Rangru though, after my 500 kilogram bombs fail to hit the targets. So I've reloaded my FV432s now with the Fusilier squads that originally pushed into this tree line. And then I've got my other 3 units of Fusiliers that were originally on the right down here running across this field to hide over here instead. Now my Challenger 1 Mark IIs are being engaged by max range 80 gems, so I decide to reverse both of them so that they don't get hit in the side or rear armor. Always make sure that if you are disengaging from 80 gems that you do reverse, because otherwise you will get caught out and will likely get one shot in the side or rear armor. Now, another thing that a lot of people neglect to do is actually reload their APCs. Now, because I didn't lose any of the squads of my Fusiliers, I actually could get my APCs and reload them to move them faster to a new position. And MiG-23M comes in and shoots down another of my Gazelle recon, but does suffer the price when flying straight towards 3 track rapiers moving across the field, plus Rangru's 2 track rapiers on the right. Now you're probably wondering what's going on over here. Well, we've got an Mi-8T engaging 3 of my Fusiliers squads. Already destroyed 1 but ran out of ammo, and now my Fusiliers will just continue to run across that field uncontested. We've also had my 4 FV432s engage with a Morskaya Pehota squad and basically get completely annihilated. So now my Fusiliers are running into position to engage the squad. Now meanwhile on the left, Val has been dislodged from India and is currently trying to hold out in Hotel instead. But I'm still trying to push forwards on the right. My Fusilier is now engaging this Mi-8T, which is completely defenseless after using up its rockets. Now these Fusiliers managed to kill the Morskaya Pehota squad very quickly after all four squads start engaging. And then I continue to move them towards an obscure position at the back of this hill, which may be able to catch out any of their other units in the area. Now furthermore, I've moved forwards to 3 Fusilier squads that were sitting here near this track rapier FSA up to the back of the hill. So now I have 7 squads of Fusiliers hidden over this mountain. So now I'm engaging the Mi-8T on the right, which managed to escape from the Fusiliers with a tracked rapier. And unfortunately, one of the track rapiers gets taken out by a T-80U, so I begin to move forwards my Challenger 1 Mark IIs, which have since been repaired after being hit by HGMs to engage the T-80U. So you can see I brought in a Chinook here and hid it behind the tree line, which I then used to repair the Challenger 1 Mark II that got hit. So 2 Challenger 1 Mark IIs firing from 2 angles. The T-80U that is facing up against the Challenger 1 Mark IIs is going to be no match for them. So Redford does actually retreat with the T-80U, and rightly so, because otherwise in that engagement he would have lost it pretty simply. Now there's some really nice napalm that goes on here. You can see that one of my Challenger 1 Mark IIs is moving up very close to this mountain, whilst the other one is pretty left open out in the field. And my Rover Pinky here does get sniped, and that's my recon pretty much gone. I've still got my tracked rapiers here to take care of any helicopters that try and engage me, but I'm currently being completely rendered useless on the left by this napalm. It's blocking my line of sight, which was an incredibly good move. if I go to the neutrals perspective, we can see that Zibrek has a TO-55 here, and he's using fire position with it in order to napalm certain areas around my Challenger 1 Mark II, and it's leaving my Challenger 1 completely blind. Else I would be able to use this Challenger 1 Mark II along with this one in order to target this T-80U left on very low health. Now, because he's managed to hit me with this napalm, it's left my stabilization malfunctioning and an optical failure. So knowing that my Challenger 1 is completely left out in the open on the right, I do try and bring up the tracked rapier to shoot down a couple of his helicopters, but that doesn't quite work with that one because it gets flanked by some Razvedka who managed to kill it. But I do manage to get up another tracked rapier on the left, which kills his Mi-24V and his Mi-2 Recon. Or at least one of them, because Redford has another one sitting around. But now I've got a Challenger 1 Mark II sitting here flanked by a T-80U and a T-72B coming up the road. And there's not much this guy's going to be able to do. I'm just trying to basically reverse him as quickly as possible behind the cover of the smoke that's left from the napalm. But you can see, basically, because my Challenger 1 Mark II tries to face the T-80U and then gets shot in the side armor by a T-72B, it doesn't survive very long, needless to say. Still got one Challenger 1 Mark II left though, and that does continue to engage the T-80U down to 1 bar of health. Now this tracked rapier just here has run out of ammo, so I have no anti-air cover left for this Challenger 1 Mark II, and it was a bit silly of me to start moving that forwards. But I have brought in 2 Harrier GR5s, and they were hovering around my own airspace before I moved them in to attack the enemy. So basically what I did there was something that another thing that a lot of people forget to do. A lot of people fire position their aircraft from spawn, so it will come in and it will go to its objective and then it will fly away. Now what you can do is bring in the aircraft beforehand, have them fly around in your own airspace close to your front lines, and then you can basically do like a joint attack with your aircraft and your ground forces at the same time. So let's go back to my own perspective and see what's going on now. We've got my Fusiliers having slight engagements. They managed to take out an OSA, and I can also now see their BRDM-2U sitting at the back of Delta. Now we've also got me 2 Fusilier squads still sitting here, and my Challenger 1 Mark II unfortunately getting sniped by a couple of HGMs coming in from the right from these Conquer squads. Fortunately, I've now managed to flank those, and I do manage to kill one off. But because all of my Challenger 1 Mark IIs have now died, it's time for the Challenger 1 Mark Is to come into play. Now I have a lot of these on my deck, and here you can see I have 4 lined up and ready to go. Backed up by a Rover Pinky for recon, and some tracked rapiers for anti-air. Now my Challenger 1 Mark II that did get away with like barely any health reversed, and I've now got a Chinook coming in to basically resupply that. My other Chinook is flying back to base to resupply. So I know that this T-80U is on very, very low health, so I'm basically charging it with my Challenger 1 Mark Is. Now, very luckily for the enemy, they managed to make the weapons jam and the firing computer reset on 2 of my Challenger 1s, which is ridiculous. And I was very unlucky that that happened to me, but that was mainly due to the rocket ponds from the Mi-24V and their HGMs. And all I'm trying to do here is try and get my one Challenger 1 Mark I to take a shot at this T-80U to kill it. and I do finally manage to do so. This TACU lasted forever, and unfortunately lost me another Challenger 1 in the process, which was just here, got blown up by an HGM of the Mi-24V after suffering another weapon jam or weapon firing computer reset. So now I'm just trying to get this Challenger 1 Mark 1 out of here without losing that as well. So my Rover Pinky's hidden in this hedge line here, and that's providing most of my recon on this side. It's got exceptional recon, so pretty much I can guarantee that everything I can see is what's actually there up to a certain point. So you can see I can see the Mi-24V and this Mi-24V. I can see the cargoes. Anything further behind that though is a bit too far for the Rover Pinky to see. Anyway, knowing that this Mi-24V is on the ground, I do actually come in with a Harrier GR5 and bomb that, and do manage to kill it. My Harrier also manages to get out of the airspace before a MiG-23M comes in and tries to shoot it down. We're currently at +1, 255 points to the enemy's 76. Now, most of the early advantage of the enemy came from the fact that we lost India. But Val's done a valiant job of trying to hold back Radio Rage and Redford on the left. See a nice napalm strike from the enemy here really stunts Val's Royal Marines from doing anything impressive. But fortunately his Challenger 1 Mark II is here to cover them against the advancing Motor Streltsy. Now we're still being harassed by Radio Rage and his helicopters. Rangru looks like he brings in some Harrier GR1s to attack those, and as they miss their target, instead evacs them. But his track rapiers managed to take care of the helicopter nonetheless. And now it's time for the Challenger 1s to charge again. I brought in another Challenger 1 Mark 1 to replace the one that got killed. I've also got my tracked rapiers now in position with my Rover Pinkies. I've also brought in my Harrier GR5s in order to provide hits where I find resistance. So now I can see that I've got some Conquer squads here. We've got a couple of what seem to be Sturms firing upon my Challenger 1s as I advance. And now I have my Harriers coming in for a combined strike onto these targets. So even though my Challenger 1s managed to kill the HGM targets pretty quickly, I've still got more bombs coming in to take care of another Sturm and stun their helicopters. I also bombed on the right here where I thought there was HGMs lying in the tree line. So with that, I'm pretty much waiting on my tracked rapiers to catch up to shoot down their helicopters. But Zibrek decides to bring in an Su-24M to try and bomb one of my Challenger 1s, and he does manage to stun it, but it doesn't do too much damage as those bombs are very small. My Rover Pinky, however, going a bit man mode, goes very far up, and I do just about manage to get it into a hedge line before it gets sniped by an Mi-24V. But over advancing, these Mi-24Vs of Zibrex unfortunately get shot down by my tracked rapier as he leaves the game. And now I'm left with my 4 Challenger 1s still, most of which are pretty damaged, but ready still to attack up into Delta. Now unfortunately, because Zibrex left the game, one of his Mi-24Vs does fly straight into my AA. Redford quickly surrenders after Zibrecht does, and now we're left 3v1 against Radio Rage. So I know that it's pretty much my chance to head towards the enemy and finish them off on this side. So I've got my Harrier coming in to bomb this Afghansky. The Harriers left in the area are unfortunately being shot down by a MiG-25 PD, but that suffers the same fate as my Harrier as it flies over all of my AA. Then I drop some bombs underneath this Mi-2 recon helicopter to try and take that out. Unfortunately, a bit of a long shot there. And now it's basically my Challenger 1's turn to basically try and take out as many units as they can before they get killed. So HGM manages to snipe my Challenger 1 Mark II along with the help of the T-72B main cannon, and we do manage to kill the command vehicle that retreated earlier, the BRDM-2U, that was hiding in this tree line here. But he still has another command vehicle in the area because obviously it's still occupied. Now my Rover Pinky gets a bit too valiant. He gets destroyed by the T-72B push that is coming towards me. And this is being followed by my Challenger 1 Mark 1s dying, a couple of them at least. And now I've got a Tornado ADV F3 providing air cover at the moment. But with so many T-72Bs coming in, there isn't really much I can do. I have to completely retreat my Challenger 1 Mark 1s. And with the sight of 2 MiG-25 PDs, it's time for my Tornado ADV to leave the area. Now what was really awesome about this position, I managed to retreat one of my Challenger 1 Mark 1s into this tree line here. And it left me at like a 90-degree angle attack onto these T-72Bs, which was pretty awesome. So this Challenger 1 Mark 1 would attack them from the front, while my Challenger 1 Mark 1 over here would attack them in the side armor. It worked out very well when I targeted them specifically. You can see that my Challenger 1 is still getting kills, but eventually gets taken out by these T-72Bs. So I bring in a Harrier GR5 to try and bomb them, but unfortunately they miss. So instead, it's up to my Lynx AH-7 TOW-2s to do the work instead. 2 HGMs from one of these bad boys will absolutely annihilate a T-72B, and that's exactly what they do. Now one of my Lynx AH-7 TOW-2s does get very low, but does manage to survive the attack from the MiG. Now a very good tip, if you see a helicopter being focused by an aircraft, fly the helicopter towards the aircraft, because it will mean that the helicopter has less time to be shot at by the aircraft that is flying towards it. And therefore will have to bank all the way back round in order to fire on your helicopter again, at which point you can either get your helicopter to cover behind a mountain or something, or you can get it over air cover or anti-air cover, so like track rapiers and track rapier FSAs in my case. Anyway, my Challenger 1 Mark 1 got 1 bar of health left. It's still firing on this T-72B that's sitting idly on the right here. It's got its firing computer reset, which is why it's not firing back, and it's basically just giving me a chance to give pot shots off with my elite Challenger 1 Mark 1. Now meanwhile over in Echo is another T-80 push again by Radio Rage. Fortunately this time Rangru is well prepared. He's got his Challenger 1 Mark 1s, he's got his Fusiliers and Chieftain Mark 2s waiting in the tree lines there. At close range, those Challenger or those Chieftain Mark IIs are going to do a lot of damage. Over here you can see I bring in 2 Harrier GR5s to do a bombing run on 2 of their Tunguskas that were sitting by their T-72B. Basically, I managed to kill these 2, but didn't realise he had another 2 sitting just behind them, and they unfortunately managed to shoot down one of my Harrier GR5s before they get away. So I've still got one of my Lynx A87 TOW2s left, and managed just to pick up another kill onto a T-72B. I've also brought up some reinforcements in the meantime. You can see that my Challenger 1 though, that was sitting here, did get destroyed. Another shot from the Lynx AH7 TOW2 kills another T-72B. And once again I brought in the Tornado ADV F3 for air cover. And really this was a pretty bad idea, putting my Tornado ADV F3 against 2 MiG-25 PDs. Especially when my Tornado decides to evac over 2 2K22 Tunguskas. And one of them does get killed by my Challenger 1 Mark 1, but we are getting very close to winning at this point, and I'm basically just trying to keep applying the pressure here so that we can win much sooner. So obviously at this point it's just Radio Rage facing off against all 3 of us on our team. Val's managed to break through on the left, and you see his Chieftain Mark 5s and Challenger 1 Mark 2s are heading straight for their base, dislodging all of their command vehicles. And although Radio Rage puts up a valiant attempt, unfortunately it's not going to be a win for him today. So now I've got my Challenger 1 just attacking his T-80s with the help of the Lynx AH7 TOW2. The Lynx ran out of ammo, but that doesn't matter as the game ends and we win after a time of 32 minutes and 51 seconds. So it was a pretty total victory for us. We managed to do a good job of focusing on the positions we wanted to capture early on. The only one that didn't quite work was on the left, where Val kind of got pushed back early on, but then managed to get back at them and eventually push through to their base. That worked out quite well. But on the right, my combined push with Rangru really managed to win us this game. I think it really put them off and made them focus on a lot of their resources on that side. And you can see that I managed to get 4,220 kills to 2,296 losses, and that's because the price of a lot of the units that were focused on my side. Rangru did an excellent job with 2,785 kills to 975 losses. That's incredible KD for this game, especially on Conquest, where people tend to lose a lot more units than they assume they do. Then Val also did a good job, even though he did get pushed back very early on with 3,166 kills to 1,675 losses. Now, one thing that you can see is that these Challenger 2s did an amazing job. I think they are very, very good. There's this one Challenger 1 Mark II here, got T-64B, T-72A, he's got some Conquer squads, Sturm, Moskea Pehod squad, a couple of those actually. And then you can see the Challenger 1 Mark 1 got a T-80U kill, 2 T-055 kills, a BRDM-2U kill, and 2 T-72Bs kills. This Challenger 1 Mark 1 got a Conquer squad kill, a couple of Conquer squads kill, and a T-72B kill. And this one Lynx AH7 TOW2 that I brought in near the end got 4 T-72B kills, a T-80 kill, and a 2K22 Tunguska kill. Pretty impressive stuff there by those units. So that's mainly the reason that my KD was actually quite good, because a lot of the units I killed were worth a lot of money. Anyway guys, I really hope you enjoyed this one. I basically wanted to do a gameplay that was a bit longer than the last one. The last one was kind of like a warm-up to this one, and hopefully that showed in the way that we played. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.